Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play Cast, brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. I'm your host, Mike Byrne, aka Magicman. This is episode 223, and we're recording on June 8th. You're watching it on June 9th, or later, June 9th. The US release of Opus 3 starter decks for Final Fantasy, the trading card game. I already got the red binders back there ready. And I already have my starter decks. I got them from England, Jason. So I don't have to buy any Opus 3 stuff until July 21st when the booster boxes come out. So I'm financially, which is good, because next week is Final Fantasy XIV's expansion. Oh, yeah. Anyway, we've got news. Some good, some bad, and some really bad, particularly if you were a fan of Blast. But before we get started, let's introduce the host, Mr. Jason Winter. How are you, sir?
You need help, man. You just need help.
I don't need help.
Yeah, you do.
I have the full sets of Opus 1 and 2. In foil and in standard. And I have all the promo cards and advertising cards in standard and foil as well. I have all the starter decks for Opus 3 already.
Do you have Final Fantasy underwear?
I do not. Is there such a thing?
And you call yourself a fan. Jeez.
Oh my god, I'm... Really?
That's it. That's your order for the underwear. They're calling it. Let you know where to ship it.
Underwear order coming in right now. We'll just
That's exactly what they're doing.
Back.
You want to get that?
Is there Final Fantasy underwear? See?
I don't know. I bet there is.
I'm
sure there is.
I bet
Well,
you there's
whether
Final
it's-
Fantasy lingerie.
Whether it's an official product or not, who knows?
Well, you could already hear her on the line while I'm looking up Final Fantasy underwear. It's Q. How are you?
I've just realized I'm pulling a Gary Gannon with the shirt. Look. Watch the stripes. And I didn't even realize it until just now. But I bet you it's not underwear, it's Final Fantasy lingerie. I bet you it exists.
Oh, that would be... that would be a bit creepy, I think.
Hey, there's Pokemon lingerie, so...
Is there really? You're kidding me.
Yeah, there's a lot of money to be made of video game-related lingerie.
Oh my god, Ben Men's Final Fantasy XIV game underwear cotton briefs.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Now we know what to get Mike for his birthday.
Shit, currently unavailable.
Oh.
I don't know. That might be
When's your birthday?
That might... that might be a bit too far even for me. Now I gotta see if there's lingerie, though. We'll totally get started
Careful,
with this,
man. Careful. Get your virus checker up to date first.
I see costumes, cosplay costumes, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it looks like it's all related to sexy Final Fantasy costume.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Let's with this. That is not Final Fantasy.
Usually when sexy is tacked on the front of it, it's probably not going to be related to what you think what it says.
Lycra spandex Final Fantasy superhero clothes. It's a full body one piece gold spandex suit, you know, kind of like one of those BDSM leather type deals, except it's Lycra and spandex.
A gimp suit?
A what? Is there a term?
Come with a chocobo mask?
Wait, what's it called, Q?
A gimp suit.
A gimp suit?
Gimp. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, see. Didn't you ever
I've seen Pulp Fiction. Yeah,
I've seen Pulp Fiction, but yeah, it's one of those. Now that I'm, oh my god, Googling that. Let's close that pane.
All right, let's not get that on
Let's
the
get started with the show. Let's get started with the news. God, that went south so fast. All right, so let's talk a little Secret World Legends, because a couple key things happened this week, and we've got about, what, is it 26? So we've got about, what, 1, 2, 6, 8, about 18 days or so before the launch of Secret World Legends. They've been holding press previews and interviews. Our own Q took part in one of those, so we'll definitely be talking about that. But they also did an Ask Me Anything on Reddit. So before we get to, Q, your preview, because that's going to free you up to talk about some of the concerns you may have had and that you brought up to the team, being a Secret World fan and looking at Secret World Legends. But first, I think... Could we just kind of laugh at the Ask Me Anything? I mean, would that be rude?
I'm not sure what was going on there. It might have been that they've had him doing so many of these tours and stuff that, like, he was just like, I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah, it was just weird. So first off, they advertised that they were going to do an AMA on Reddit like the day before, and they did it through a tweet and a picture and everything like that. And I saw it, and I thought, okay, fine, I'll poke my nose in and check it out, being a Secret World fan, you know, and looking at Secret World Legends and seeing if it's something I'm going to dabble in and play or what. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll check it out. And so I jumped in. It started at, like, what, 1 o'clock Eastern U.S. time, Jason? Something like that?
Something like that.
They were supposed to run. They didn't have the first answer to anything. There's like 30, 35, 40 questions already, or posts already. Granted, some of them were totally off topic, right? Anarchy Online and...
How many of those were there? There were a lot of Anarchy Online.
Yeah, it was surprising. It was like, wait a minute. They said this was a Secret World Legends AMA, and Anarchy Online and the sub fees and Anarchy Online 2, potentially. It was all over that thing. But it was like almost 20 after before we saw the first answer, which I thought was a little weird. I've watched a lot of AMAs on Reddit, and typically when you say, hey, we're going at 1, you see the same type of thing happen. And maybe it's just I'm lucky, but typically what I always see is like every question being answered as soon as they're coming in for the first 15 minutes, and then they start falling behind, obviously, because more and more people are asking questions. This, I almost saw the opposite. It was like they let 30, 40 questions build up and then started answering them. By that point, they're a third of the way done with their AMA time, Jason. It just was a little unusual to me. Maybe that's normal, and I don't check out enough AMAs. I don't know.
I don't know. Neither do I. But I think the way you described it is usually how it goes. So my theory is that they were going to do it, or rather, he decided they were going to do it. But then the PR or someone tried to stop him, tried to tackle him, getting into the room, get the computer. He had to take 20 minutes to fight his way through to get to the computer to actually be allowed to do it. So
we're imagining that this is kind of like the White House right now, and Donald Trump with Twitter, and people jumping on him to get devices off of him so that he can't tweet. All right, that gives me the mental image there.
It could be one of two things. It could be something similar to that, where they were basically just sitting here going, no, you can't answer that. No, you can't answer that.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, my walkthrough with him took an hour and a half, and it was immediately after, or relatively immediately after that AMA. And it took a good while, and you'd get off tangent, where he's actually got a full, like, this is the way it's supposed to go. You pretty much had no questions at the end. Almost when you were done with them, but you'd still get off topic.
Yeah, it was.
And then they go. So
it looked a bit like maybe as the questions were coming in, they were kind of like, some of these, or most of these aren't questions we're prepared to answer, so we're just going to sit and wait until we get a question that we are willing to answer.
Half an hour, though, right?
15, 20 minutes was.
But after that was, I can't answer that.
Yeah,
first answer.
And then they started using that, so it was like, well, I don't know. Like here, I'll give you an example. Like the first person that posted, maybe 5 or 6 things in there, asked a few questions, right? Will faction deck costumes return? How about the basic ones now tied to classes? Will the ones that we don't pick be obtainable? They said yes, yes, and yes. And a lot of these questions were about costumes, outfits, what's transferring into Secret World Legends, and things like that. And I think we can cover that better in your preview, because you asked that direct question and actually got some pretty decent numbers, Q. But they said yes, yes, yes. How much time will we have until the Whispering Tide? I'm going to skip that one. That's an event-related thing. The info on Ox weapons. This is huge, right? If you played the Secret World, this is something that you've been wondering for a while. The info on Ox weapons has been vague at best. Are they completely scrapped? Any plans for them? Maybe fully fledged weapons? Maybe secondary only? Whip and brace were so cool. They said maybe? Question mark.
And a smiley face.
This launches in 18 days with early access in 17 days through a vague tweet that really didn't even indicate who gets early access. I presume it's people that own the Secret World, trying to say thank you to them, but even that was a bit vague. Just PRs. Ugh. Augments got removed, but will Aegis still be in it, or still be in? I think an overhaul was mentioned, but I hope it's not gone. It made Tokyo a really unique area. Too early to answer that. We'll give you more info when we get closer to the release of Tokyo, but it's good news. That one I'm kind of okay with, because we know Tokyo isn't going to be part of launch, right? Tokyo is something that's coming later, so okay, fine. I get too early to answer that one. Have there been any changes to the flow of the story to avoid anachronisms? In Secret World, it's easy to miss The Girl Is Gone, or even all of Issue 7 before players reach Tokyo, but both are quite important. A lot of the story has been updated, this was the answer, to include some of the issue content, particularly what includes important characters. Okay, but all in all, it was kind of the same thing happening throughout this whole thing. Somebody would ask a question, and it was either told too early to answer, or they kind of went off on something else. Like, somebody brought up guns and pistols, and does it become more interesting and exciting as you unlock abilities? And they kind of went off on blades and fists and other things. They couldn't answer the question on if there was going to be an open beta. It's 18 days away from launch. Either you're having one or you're not, and you already know the answer to that at this point, given that it's 18 days from launch. And if the answer is no, the answer is no. Hey, we're just going to close beta this. We're going to have an early access of 1 day for Secret World purchasers or whoever, and then we're going to launch. Okay, fine. I don't think anybody... I was really disappointed with this AMA, Jason, and maybe I'm overreacting, but as a Secret World fan, I was disappointed, downright disappointed.
Even as a non-Secret World fan, as someone who just kind of barely dabbled in it, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I read through all of their answers. I didn't read through every single question that was asked, all the irrelevant stuff, whatever. But I just read through all their answers. And a lot of them, like you said, a lot of them were based on, transferring and how's our loot going to go and stuff like that. And a lot of things and maybe a few things that were just kind of over my head that, as someone who's not super into the game, I didn't recognize. There are only 2 things that stood out to me as things that you kind of want to know, even as a sort of beginning player. It was a question about crafting, and they said this is probably the most drastic change in Secret World Legends. Crafting has been removed for the most part. You can upgrade your gear via a nicer interface. Missions that require crafting and recipes have been updated to work better. And right after that, we also wanted to get rid of the inventory clutter.
Now, and we kind of have to tread a careful line here between things we've experienced in previews and stuff like that, and if any of us were in beta, then obviously you guys can't talk about
I've
your
not
beta
seen any of
experiences.
That. I'm not going on anything
but this was a question that they answered for me.
Yeah.
Fairly in depth, and they gave me a look at the crafting system. You basically
fed weapons to your weapon, right?
Yeah. You basically sacrifice an item, and you can sacrifice pretty much any item to another item, but it's one of those cases of if you've got like a weapon that's got three pips on it, and then you have another one that's got the same weapon, and you put it in there, you get higher stat raises and stuff. So instead of ending up with a whole bunch of trash, you can either use the weapon to upgrade your current weapon, meaning you pretty much never have to get rid of the weapon you have as long as you keep upgrading it. You can use it to do that. You can trade it on the auction house, and there was a third thing for it. But at any rate, you the whole weapon clutter thing is not a problem, and the whole having to learn patterns to create a sword or a shield or whatever. You don't have to know any of that. Because that was the first thing they taught us one of the first things they taught us when we hopped into the game, right? Here's how you craft, and here's the book that tells you all the patterns that you need in order to craft this thing. Doesn't exist anymore. They just got rid of that. But it does it does cost you an in-game currency to do the crafting.
Is it the Pax Romana? Is it a dedicated currency? What was it?
It's a dedicated currency.
It's a dedicated currency.
I can't think of the name of it, but no, it's not the PAX thing. But yeah, so it costs you. It will cost you. But if you do it the right way, you can. There's actually a little bit of min-maxing on the cost. Basically, if you do it just right, you can lower the cost for yourself.
The big thing that gets answered over and over and over again on the AMA is the costumes. Big deal for Secret World players as far as the unique look of your character and the costumes you may have earned from events, particular quests, login events, holiday events, all that type of stuff. A lot of that is going to be transferring, and they did say in the AMA that it is based on at least one of your characters on your Secret World account having that said item, that the item would transfer over. Pets, too. Now, they're not saying all. I believe they told you, what, Q, about 4,000 And I think they mentioned that number on the AMA as well. So
with clothes, there are over 6,500 items of clothing in the Secret World, like in the original Secret World. They went through and counted them, and then they moved 4,000 of those items over. And you're remembering that items of clothing are everything from like, shirts and jackets to scarves and necklaces and, lots of little accessories. But they transferred 4,000 of those over. I did ask about pets very specifically because I'm hyper concerned that my pet from the 2012 Into the World event might disappear. This would really make me sad. So I asked specifically about it. Now, pets, they're doing a little bit differently in that, like the more mundane pets, the cats and the dogs and stuff like that you could kind of pick up in shops or whatever, they won't necessarily transfer those over to your character. Like pets gained from events and stuff like that, we're much more likely to get. But the reason they're not transferring the pets, like the more mundane pets, is some of those are going to be reward items and quests and things like that now.
Yeah, and they were vague on the pets in the AMA. They just said, "Yep, same as clothing. Some of the pets will transfer over."
He really was vague about it there too. Like he said, special events and stuff like that, but he didn't specify because like I said, I very specifically said the pet that I got from the 2012 event. And I never did get a direct answer as to whether or not that follow me in. So,
Jason,
that's the one I'm
some of the more global questions, somebody asking about consoles, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I mean, of course, they gave the answer of if Secret World Legends is very successful, we would love to do it. That's not going to happen. Gamepad control, they kind of shied away from. I didn't see them answer that anywhere. Although they did change the control scheme a bit, according to your preview, so that people who may not benefit or be able to use or just don't like using the keyboard-mouse combination can still revert back to a two-handed keyboard configuration for controlling the game, so that's good. The big thing, though, is, of course, the Secret World players that really don't want to frickin' go through, 6 issues to catch up to where they were on issue 7 just to sit there and enjoy the story. So, of course, somebody asked. So I love the story and universe behind the Secret World, but I'm really not keen on grinding it out again to get my character back ready again for future content. Since Legends isn't an MMO like Secret World, has there been any thought to put in a sort of easy mode for people who just want to experience the story but not have to think too hard about the mechanics? And their answer was, there have been several changes to the story, so definitely a few things to discover this time around, which I find a bit conflicting with previous statements in the interview that I had with Secret World, where they said, we've tweaked some things and filled in a couple plot holes or things that we felt were missing, but generally speaking, the story is unchanged. There's not too much new there. We tried to ensure the game will be simple enough for players that just want to enjoy the ride and discover the story. We're keeping the more difficult dungeons for endgame dungeons and layers. We've even added a story mode for the dungeons, which, you got to take a peek at. That allows you to do them with very small groups while leveling, focusing mainly on the story. So what was that like? Having done dungeons in Secret World in parties of 5, but according to your preview, the story version, you were able to just take 3 in there, and the build of the composition of the group didn't matter. What was that like?
It was actually, pretty nice. It was basically, it's a little weird because there's another mode which he kind of addressed a little bit, and it's in these story modes where you can basically, I forget what he called it, but you can set it to where it doesn't function exactly the same, like it doesn't have the same requirements as a normal dungeon. It's the dungeon, but without you having to complete those requirements, and you can actually even go and do it by yourself if you want. But it was, it was fairly kind of light, and it is one of those nice things, like if you're running around in a game and you're just dungeon shy, it does give you a little bit of a taste for it without you having to stand there and wait and figure out, okay, and especially in these lower level dungeons, which is what we did. We did the one of the ones in Kingsmith. You know, once so many people are past that level, they don't want to go back and do those dungeons.
Right.
So you have a really hard time finding, you know, a specific set of people and, you know, enough of them to do it. So if you can just grab 2 of your buddies and go run through, and it doesn't matter what your composition is, you know, that's a fairly nice benefit. And they did say they do have more advanced, like there are still the 5-mans needing the Holy Trinity and, you know, the heavier dungeons later on. But as far as like the story dungeons and stuff like that, it's definitely a much more relaxed thing.
Did you run Polaris? Was that the one you ran?
Yeah, I believe so. It's been so long since I've even done anything in Kingsmith that I just kind of forget the names of them. But we didn't run the entire thing. We just ran like the first little bit, mostly so they could show me the loot box feature.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to kind of get into next here. This was not covered in the AMA, besides just saying it's free to play, because apparently some people didn't know the monetization model, and so they asked, and they said it's free to play. But according to your preview, there is kind of a loot boxy thing, but it's not a loot boxy, like an RNG type deal. It's one of those deals where the box is going to have, you know, the boss drops in it, but you're going to have to buy the keys. So take us a little bit through that, and then Jason, I want your opinion on this one.
That just stings just from hearing that basic description of it.
Well, except it is a tiny bit different than the normal just buy a key thing, because normally, right, when you're buying keys, you're dumping real world cash on these keys. So what they do is they give you 12 keys per day, which allows you to run 2 dungeons in full, because there's 6 bosses per dungeon. And then and each boss, when you finish it, will drop a box that you can unlock. So you can basically run 2 dungeons per day because you get the 12 free keys. Now, to buy the keys, you can spend real world cash. They want people to spend real world cash, but you can actually use in-game currency earned in game to do it, to buy it as well. So if you just want to, you know, go run another dungeon, you know, you can spend current, you know, in-game currency in order to do it.
Now, and here was the question I had for you, Q, because I didn't quite get this out of the preview portion. Am I able to just, like, am I going to go to an NPC and buy keys off an NPC with in-game currency, or is this precluded by Jason had to use real cash to buy keys, and then he is then selling them to other players for in-game currency or on the auction house? So at the end of the day, somebody paid cash for those keys.
That is an option as well, but my understanding of it is that you could just directly use the currency, the in-game currency, to buy the keys.
Gotcha.
But they do have a system in the game that's very similar to the EVE Online Plex system, where
gotcha.
you can buy, you know, buy the shop currency using in-game currency and vice versa.
Yeah, and I would assume that there's probably bonuses for this if you pay their optional sub, and maybe even the people that have the Grandmaster or Secret World players with the complete pack that are being grandfathered in and given bonuses of some type. I could see this as, they haven't announced those bonuses for any of those options yet, but I could see this as one of those little perks for those people.
I do know that if you do the sub, you do get like bonus keys. Because they showed me, and I thought I put a picture of it, you know, where you go and you click on the B that tells you at the top what your bonuses are. You do get bonus keys per day. I think it's like 2 extra keys per day or something like that for subbing. And then, of course, you get the other stuff, you know, that most people, I think, in the Secret World subscribe for, like the ability to just teleport continuously without having to spend anything on it.
Hey, Sprint still goes up to 6 levels, so that has me happy enough there.
Yeah, so stuff like that.
One key question before I turn this over to you, Jason, for your opinion, because I know you're chomping at the bit on this one. Do we know if keys roll over? If I if I don't run a dungeon on Monday, on Tuesday, do I have 24 keys, or is there a key cap as far as how many I can have at any given time? Do we know?
You know what? I didn't even think to ask about that, because I guess from the way he was describing it, I think they do just kind of accumulate. But I mean, because obviously you get 2 extra when you do the one. You can go buy more keys any time of the day and use them. So my guess, but I honestly didn't even think about asking about it because there was just so much information being given, is that they can accumulate.
I tend to think they probably can't. Just gut reaction. I have a feeling that I don't know if the cap would be 12 or 24, but
it's not going to be unlimited.
Yeah, I don't think it's
going to
after a year. It might not be unlimited, but what I do know is what they told me with the daily login bonuses is that those, you know how a lot of games, if you don't log in every single day, you don't get that bonus.
Right.
With their login bonuses, it doesn't matter. So, I mean, if that's an indication, then they probably...
Is it doesn't matter at all, or it resets every month? Because I know Terra did a similar thing where you didn't have to log in consecutive days. As long as you logged in 20 days out of 30, you were fine. You got all the bonuses.
Yeah, it's there if you don't log in the next day.
Or not Terra, Rift, sorry.
It there. And they're not really describing... They don't call it login bonuses. It's just daily bonus.
All right.
So that might be the difference as well, but that's actually something where if you're a patron, you get the daily bonus, and then you get additional daily bonus to go along with it.
All right, Jason, it's all yours. What do you got?
It's all going to depend on what we learn about these keys in terms of, well, like you said, if I can run 2 dungeons per day, I mean, that's not bad for me, at least for being the kind of semi-casual person. Probably never going to run more than that in a day anyway. Especially if they accumulate a little bit, so maybe I can do 3 or 4 dungeons a day if I was really like going crazy on a Saturday or something like that. But it reminds me of everybody's favorite loot system, Black Gold Online, where you could play for like an hour and get your loot thing, play for another hour, get another loot thing. You pay past that, you have to pay for your loot thing, or pay with real money. Here, if you can pay it with currency, and if it's not too much currency, maybe it's not so bad. We really got to know the numbers on this before I can pass like a final judgment on it.
I agree. I want to see how this is going to roll over. Like you playing Final Fantasy XIV now, you're probably familiar with the leave quests and getting 3 per day and everything, but they roll over and they
to
keep
a max
stacking,
of like 20 or something, which
to
is
100.
Again, fine for me.
So they stack up to 100.
Yeah.
And something like that, I'd be okay with. By the time you need keys, if you never played Secret World and you're just jumping into Secret World Legends for the first time, I mean, you're probably going to play for a number of days before you're going to hit your first dungeon anyway. So you've already stacked up a couple days worth of keys. I'm with you, Jason. I really want to see how this plays out. On do they roll over? Do I have to, are these only, do I accumulate 12 keys only on days that I log in if they do roll over? Or can I play on Sunday and then log in on Wednesday and have 36 keys, even though I didn't log in Monday and Tuesday? I think there's a lot of questions to be answered, but that's kind of across the board with this whole thing right now. We're 18 days from launch, and Funcom still has a ton of questions to answer. So, based on your preview, Q, being a Secret World fan, you had some concerns. You took them into the preview, and if you haven't read Q's article, check it out on the site. Are you more excited, less excited, more concerned, less concerned? Where do you stand on Secret World Legends right now?
I think I would just say that I'm currently okay with it.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you with it?
I'm okay. Like, I don't know, maybe a 6 or something. I mean, it's really, like I said, the other big concern, and it's one that wasn't really addressed for me, is the fact that I still have to repeat all that content. Yeah. And there's certain things, I mean, as much as I love the game, and there were quests that I really, really loved. Like, we actually did one of my favorite quests, the Raven quest, the one where you stalk the ravens to get to the Revenant. We did that one. And that's always been one of my favorite quests. But there's other, like the sabotage missions. Oh my god, I hate almost all of those because they require all the stealthy, and it's just like, I like the story part, but I don't really want to have to literally jump through all these hoops. I mean, there was, and this was in the Secret World. This isn't like it'd be a spoiler for anybody who hasn't played the Secret World, but there's a much, much later mission where you're invading the Orochi, and you're having to hop across, like, computer towers and dodge lasers and manage to avoid being caught by people and stuff like that. And
Not looking forward to it again, huh?
I finally just got Justin and was like, Justin, do this. I've done it so many times, and all it does is make me angry. Yeah, like, I get so mad, I can't function to do it. So do this.
Yeah, I'm in the wait and see mode. I'm not terribly excited about Secret World Legends. I still don't fully, and I know that they tried to explain this in your interview a little bit, but I still don't fully buy the reason for all of this, why it couldn't have been done inside Secret World. I think it was, from the reading between the lines in your interview, it was, if we don't do something like this, Secret World's on its way out, and we're not going to get to tell the rest of our story financially. That's what's going on. That's what I was getting from
it. Yes, that is what I was getting from it. Is they had to find a way to monetize it, because he was pretty upfront with the fact that, and I'm guilty of it. Like, when I finally bought more packs, because remember when you bought the Secret World and then they converted to buy to play, right? They gave us the first 4 issues for, was it first 4? They gave us 5 issues for free, I think it was, because we already had the first 4 out, and then the 5th one launched at the same time, so they gave us like 5 issues for free. And for a long time after that, I didn't buy more, because I was playing, I was playing more slowly, because it was like just me and Justin playing.
Right.
And then they had a sale for the Ultimate Pack on Steam, and we were like, okay, and went and bought that. So I actually got all the other issues at, a cut rate, because it was like, well, I'm still not going to be doing them for a little while, but now they're there. Kind of deal. But I wasn't buying them as they came out at the...
Or paying full price.
Suggested price, yeah.
So, Jason, you're kind of with me, just, wait and see. There's still just too many damn questions right now.
I'll definitely play it. No doubt I'm going to jump into it and see how good it is and go from there.
All right, before we move on to the bombs, Jason, briefly there, we just posted a first look today. If you didn't know, Battleborn has gone free to play on all platforms. Well, kind of. The multiplayer combat portion of it, so not the story multiplayer stuff that they marketed the game on when they were trying to justify the price, when everybody thought this should be a free-to-play game to begin with. That portion you still have to pay for, but the multiplayer combat portion of it, that's free-to-play. I think it's a really dumb free-to-play model for this particular game. That's just my personal preference on it. You've tried to sell the story multiplayer content of this as the reason why it justified a fee, and you're still trying to get a fee for... There are other ways to monetize this type of game that would make this infinitely easier, just in my book. But I own the game, so I may have a different perspective on it. So let's, Jason, get briefly your take on having played it for the first look, how you think the payment model works, and whether you'd recommend people check it out or not.
Well, they're still trying to sell the story.
Whoops,
still doing that for
weekly
sure.
Weekly
bomb. Yeah, I mean, because you could play the first chapter of the story. I did that. It took me about 20 minutes. It was kind of neat, kind of fun. Got me an idea into how the characters in the world are. So the sort of thing where I could have seen myself paying the money to get more of it. It felt a little Borderlands-like, which makes sense being from Gearbox. As for the PvP, of course, when Battleborn came out, for whatever reason, it was just instantly compared to Overwatch, which came out almost exactly at the same time. I see good things about both games. For me, I think I like Overwatch better, but I have no problem with someone saying they like Battleborn better. Again, once you get into all the other different game modes, which I couldn't look at, which was really weird because I thought there'd be some sort of indicator of when those unlock, but I only had one available. So they seem kind of fun. I read about them online. They sounded kind of interesting, but that's a turnoff to me, the fact that it's something that I don't even know when I'm going to get to unlock them. Everything else had an unlock, said you must be at least level this to do it. You must pay money to do this. There's nothing else on the PvP match selector that said try these other modes, even though they say they're all available. So I just hope that's something they can maybe work on a little bit when they patch it up or something. But in general, I mean, I think it's a decent game. I think it could be something you could have a lot of fun with. I think it's not necessarily for me, but I think if you want to, if you were thinking about it before, and maybe you got into Overwatch then, and now you're like, well, I want something different. It's been a year later. go ahead and check it out. It's kind of fun to play. A little MOBA-ish, at least for the mode that I got to play in. But overall, it's something that could be pretty good.
I enjoyed the story aspect of it, and that's why I asked you, can you do the first look? Because I'm constantly going to be sitting here saying points of view on things or access to things that I have because I own the game. But I enjoyed it for the story mode version and the co-op mode of the game. So the PvP aspect of it, if I was just looking for what I enjoy in the game, this would be one that I would skip based on its free-to-play model. But that's just me. Jason, can you angle your camera down just a tad, please? It looks like
you don't want my tonberry.
Looks like you're eating your lower third.
A tonberry.
Nom nom nom.
All right, finally, we reported it 2 different days as rumor and then had it confirmed overseas. Now today, as of today, we have actual confirmation. NeoWiz and Area Games have parted ways. Bless is no longer, at this moment, coming to the West. Bless Online is not coming to the West, and if it does, at some point that would have to be through NeoWiz and either themselves or through a partnership deal with some other publisher. What does this mean for Bless? A few weeks ago, Q, we had Bless, the Russian version, get tossed back to NeoWiz for quality concern issues. And now we have Gamigo, NeoWiz, Area Games, that whole conglomeration now parting ways. And their exact quote on this one, I'll read it to you, is, together with NeoWiz, we have come to the conclusion that the technical difficulties cannot be overcome. So we agreed not to complete the game for our respective markets. This has not been an easy decision for us, and we put a lot of thought into this step. On the other hand, we have a number of interesting new releases coming up to complement our already strong portfolio, so our players can look forward to several new games in the future. That's a pretty damning statement, in that the technical difficulties cannot be overcome, right on the heels of the Russian version being sent back to.
I don't know what they're trying to do with this game, where it's just like, it's so broke. And then, of course, that they turn around and they're like, but hey, we got other games. No, don't worry about this game that you've literally been, like, everybody's been wanting, because we got other games we'll tell you about later. That's just, I feel so bad.
Like Dragamon Hunter. Oh, wait, that's closing.
I feel so bad for the people who have been waiting for this game.
I do too.
Seriously waiting for it. Like, that's who I feel bad for. I don't feel bad for the companies at all. It's like but I feel bad for the people who've just been sitting and waiting on this game.
Jason, that is, I assume you would be on the field of Bless joins Phantasy Star Online too.
Well,
shut up.
No, see, I don't feel bad for them. It's been like 5 years since we first heard about this. Move on already. You would have hated it 3 months after it came out anyways. Now you can just avoid the rush.
Hey, I waited like 5 years for the Secret World.
I just want to know what was so bad. Like,
I know, I'm very curious.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. So if you've played Bless overseas, maybe in the Russian servers, give us a heads up. Like, we knew all the levels weren't there and stuff like that, but I mean, they're talking quality-wise. Just what the hell happened?
Technical difficulty.
That is right, because the Russians basically said that it was just unfinished.
Right,
is pretty much the way they were going about it. It's unfinished. We didn't get all the levels. Everything isn't here that they told us was going to be here.
Now Gamigo's saying this shit's broke.
Like, nope, it's just done.
All right, let's slide over to the weekly bombs. Now we'll hit the weekly bomb bump. All right, I'm gonna go first. Speaking of Phantasy Star Online 2, I gotta give an A-bomb to Phantasy Star Online 2. My heart was feeling good yesterday. I linked to Jason a tweet from the PSO2 North America account. Game is coming to the West by the end of 2017. Jason was like, unbelievable. I didn't think it would ever come. We had a good laugh. But then doing our jobs, we have to make sure, as happy as I was and wanted that on the site immediately, had to look into it and kept digging, and as a result of doing my job, rather than leading with my heart, all my hopes got dashed as we found out that Sega came and said, we have no idea who this Twitter account is. We don't have anything planned for Phantasy Star Online 2. We don't have any updates or announcements. So, yeah, it's not coming to North America. But I will tell you this, Jason. It finally broke my heart enough that I went through all the rigmarole. I started playing it yesterday with all the English patches and everything. And it's, you know, you got to work to get in there and everything. Kudos to the PSO2 tweaker team and the English translation. I mean, there's still a lot in Japanese. They don't have everything, but they have the core stuff in there. You may not be able to read some quest text here and there, but you know exactly what you're trying to do. They did a really good job, and it keeps going. I'm enjoying the game. I'm going to probably post a first look on it next week, and I know it's years late, but at this point, I'm resigning myself to it's never coming to the West. If you want to play it, here's how you can play it. You know, Sega at any point may put IP bans back up, but if they don't, here you go. But I'm enjoying it so far, playing some Summoner, and yeah. Jason, go ahead.
More power to you, man. I'm going to give it just the slightest of da-bombs to Tryon Worlds.
Wow, whoa, a little positive action going towards Tryon? What happened?
Yeah, I know.
They sent you a check is what happened.
No, they did
That's
not.
what YouTube's going to say.
No,
they sent you a check.
No, but they did do... I did do an interview with them. Let's see. Did I get that? I did not get that up on the slider. Oops. Shoot. Okay, I'll do that when I get off this thing. But anyway, I did an interview with them on the new Arcade content thing coming up, Aaron or Eternal. Did the usual stuff. Tried to ask questions here and there, and actually got an interesting response to one of the questions I asked. Like, when they were talking about all the things they're doing to, like, reduce grind and try to make it, you know, better for players. I was like, you know, I know it's been 3 years, but we have that whole, oh, we just do what XL Games tells us to do. We have no power. We remember that from way back when. And I asked, you know, is that still a thing? And I mean, you say you're doing this all it's all player feedback and so on. How much power do you really have? I asked that to Merv Leakwai, their producer. And he responded, I got to be completely honest with you when I say, not much. but it was great. So first of all, it was just great to hear that he just was honest. Like, yeah, you know, really, it's true. We still don't really have a whole lot of power. But he does say he goes back to them, lobbies on a lot of things on behalf of the players, and gets a little bit of it through every now and then, talking about reducing the RNG sort of stuff that they did. So I'll give him credit for trying at least to get that far, for doing at least that much. Maybe the game's still pay to win, whatever, but you know, at least they try.
Wow. All right, Q.
You know, I think I'm going to give it the bomb to getting the opportunity to do interviews with, like, Star Trek voice actors and then just sitting and talking about Star Trek for an hour instead of actually doing the interview.
Yeah, I was reading that interview and I was like, this has nothing to do with the game, but this is really interesting.
But the thing is, there's a lot of stuff that didn't even, like, we talked about, you know, like Leonard Nimoy for a while and, you know, how much you loved him. And at one point, we totally got sidetracked onto Seth MacFarlane and whether or not we were going to watch Orville. And like, we went total sci-fi nerd. So...
No. From the viewers here, please forgive me. We're running long with all the Secret World talk there. So I just went through and had to cut some dub-bombs and question of the week replies. So if I don't read yours, it was definitely in the show notes. I was absolutely picking yours. I just had to cut it. So yeah, yours was that whoever you are, it was yours. You were on the show, but... And no question about it. It wasn't somebody else. So from the viewers, Hellsworth says, A-bomb to Jason Winter. Stop using Steam for stats.
Which means the translation is, stop using Steam to provide stats that I don't agree with.
There you go. Question for the panel. Name 3 free-to-play MMORPGs that can give players a good rating environment without asking for a subscription or have paywalls in order to play endgame content. I'd throw Rift in there. If you're a fan of tab targeting, more traditional rating. I'd throw WildStar in there if you want something. WildStar, that's one of the things that a lot of people say is the best part about that game. It's just getting there that's a pain in the ass with the grinding questing. I'd even put Terra in there if you're looking more for something action-oriented, although that becomes repetitive because they don't add too many raids very quickly. Anybody got another recommendation?
I mean, I don't know about ratings. I want to talk end game experience in general. Like Path of Exile is very good with that. from what I understand.
Go ahead, Q. Take the next one.
Luca Dornjak says, debombed Guild Wars 2 and ArenaNet after they added the legendary back pieces for PvE ad infinitum and PvP Ascension. A lot of players started talking about WDW back piece. Why wasn't there a back piece for them, since it's one of the 3 aspects of Guild Wars 2? And thank God ArenaNet listened. They have announced the WVW back piece and a lot of changes, hopefully good for both WVW and PvP, to make them better and address a lot of the problems the population was talking about. Good job, ArenaNet. You showed us you listened, and that is very rare in today's MMORPG world.
Somebody got heard, and now they're getting the cape. Oh, yeah.
No, it's like a fire. It's like a fire coming out of your back piece or whatever. I don't remember exactly, but I looked at it, so.
Go ahead, Jason.
Bizod BZ says, I got an A-bomb for War Thunder. After playing War Thunder for 4 years with all of its bugs, horrible battle ratings, and other shenanigans, they finally killed the game for me by increasing the price of tanks and planes by 300%, going from 360,000 silver lions, that's the in-game currency, to 990,000 silver lions. Then you have to spend another 360,000 silver lions to be able to train a crew, so you can take out the tank you just bought for 1 million silver lions. Knowing that, if you have a good game with more than 5 kills, you want to make around 20 to 30,000 silver lions. Makes the game completely a grind fest. Ouch.
Wow. Smurf Salsa, which is the best name ever, but then when you think about Smurf Salsa, it sounds kind of gross.
Would it be blue?
Yeah.
It would be, well, maybe blue and red. Is Smurf blood blue?
It'd be purple, I guess, assuming blood is red.
No, the purple Smurfs is when they got that disease got them and they could infect the other person by biting their tail.
All right, Gargamel. Smurf Salsa says that League of Legends change is good. Runes make the game very unfair to new players who don't have them yet. They can give you significant bonuses, pretty much like starting a game with a bonus-free item. Question of the week last week, what's the real alternative to the Trinity while being able to maintain what we know as a PvE experience in MMOs? Fortake said, question of the week in general, I'd say you really only need 2 things. 1, a method of sustain. It could be personal, cooldowns, items, etc., and or built into the fight itself, health orbs, healing stones, that type of thing. 2, a way to control the boss. I believe the aggro system is outdated for what people want nowadays. Perhaps environmental effects, such as toppling walls, or tied into the boss like hanging chains or whatever. I thought that's some interesting stuff right there, Jason. I would like to see some of that type of stuff. Go ahead, Q.
Peer around. I believe.
Is that Q or Zach?
I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm very tired. I believe that the question of how to subvert the Holy Trinity is intimately connected to the basic design of a given game's combat systems. I have doubts about whether it's even possible to do so in a classic tab target MMORPG.
Peer round. Go ahead, Jason. Oh, I gotta email Zach after the show.
Yeah. Ellsworth says, question of the week, I'm a firm believer that the Trinity is a base concept that needs not to be revamped, but enhanced. What I mean by this is that nowadays there's a lot more than just tank heals and DPS. The basic context of the Trinity is actually trust, as one must rely on each other to achieve a common goal such as killing the boss. What I mean by enhanced is actually giving classes the ability to multiply this into further more roles than just these basic 3 roles. As an example, it is actually easy to figure out a class that only does buffs during a fight, dropping absorb shields, buffing speed and damage, and an intrinsic class mechanic when it's needed, instead of a DPS ability that also does this and that, or a buff that someone needs to bring to the raid. Specialization and trust to achieve are basics in all team-related environments, so at this point I am still amazed that no one has developed more specific roles into classes, and they're just writing the concept out of its depth and into boredom.
See, I kind of disagree here, though. As much as I like, there are games that have done this, that have, pure support roles. EverQuest 2 is a good example, and even the original EverQuest, I believe. I'm more familiar with EverQuest 2, but have more pure support or hybrid type roles. The problem that I always see with them, while I agree with you, I love playing a hybrid character and using those types of mechanics. From a development side, it's really hard not to end up making one of those jobs more desirable than another for certain fights, and thus raid groups say, Jason, you can't come on this one because we're fighting this particular boss tonight, and we need that bard, or we need that whatever for these 2 or 3 things. So it gets complicated there. I agree with you. I like Hellsworth where you're going. I love utility and hybrid rules. Pablo Yukon, question of the week. A possible alternative to the Trinity could be something like this. Every class has some skills from each role. Healer, tank, DPS. Kind of like Guild Wars 2. I mean, that sounds a bit Guild Wars 2-y. Particularly with the self-healing aspect, we'll say.
Guild Wars 2 is more about the gear, too, but whatever.
Oh, there you go. Well, you would know better than I. As the fight progresses, you will switch between these skills as needed. For example, if you get targeted by the boss, you begin to use your skills that mitigate damage or stun the enemy. The other players will then be able to throw out DPS, heals, off-tank adds, whatever the fight calls for. Gear should be generic between all the roles. It will be up to the devs to devise instance encounters that are survivable and enjoyable for all the players, and allow them to play in the style they like. All easier said than done, I know. Keep up the good work as a long-time listener. I really enjoy your show, Pablo. Thank you for the compliment. And that is a very interesting idea to me.
Well, I think the point he brings up, and that I also kind of brought up, is that as much as skills in your class and your build or whatever are important, so much of it in so many MMOs is gear reliant.
Yeah.
If you have your tank gear, you can't go DPS. If you have your DPS gear, you can't be healing and so on. That's the stuff that, and they know this, that's the stuff they make you grind for. You have to do the raid 83 times to get all the gear you need, so, yeah.
Finish it off, Q.
Idokata, the only games I've seen break the Trinity MMO standard that come to mind are Path of Exile and Black Desert Online to a lesser extent, making your combat more about positioning and awareness of your surroundings to break that need. If other games want to do the same, I'd say those are the great examples to look at.
And to be fair, some of the comments that I had to axe, just in the interest of time, did bring up other games like that, like Path of Exile, Diablo 3. Most of them were ARPGs, now that I think about it, that were the same type of fight a boss with a group, but not have to worry about that the mechanics of a Trinity. So a lot of people
because they can be played solo, so they can't really have you require a Trinity.
Right.
So.
Question of the week for this week. If you're a Secret World player, I want to know how you feel about Secret World Legends. Jason was going to put this up as a survey. I put it as the question of the week so we can get some more detailed responses. Yeah. If you were a Secret World player, because we have a theory. We're not going to share it yet, but we have a theory. If you were a Secret World player, how do you feel about Secret World Legends? Are you happy about it? Are you disappointed? What's going on? If you weren't a Secret World player, how do you feel about Secret World Legends? Will you actually play it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to leave your weekly bombs, bomb for something good, bomb for something bad, or your questions for the panel down in the YouTube comments or on the site. Make sure you check out all the articles and everything that we talked about in today's show. Until next week, Q, where can everybody find you?
The Twitter is at Quinlan, and that's probably about it right now.
Jason, you're off next week, so where can everybody find you for the next 2 weeks?
Oh, they can find me on Twitter at Winter Informal and probably riding some random bus around Bethesda.
I'm Mike Byrne, a.k.a. Magic Man. You can follow me personally on Twitter at MagicMan1, MAGICKMANN1. You like that? I got the point dead on, like I knew what I was doing.
No, you didn't.
It was to the right, but at least I wasn't over here this time. I was pointing at the lower third. I was just off to the side of my name. Of course, follow at MMO Bomb while you're there. Until next week, stay safe. See you on the servers.